Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Kubernetes Unpacked podcast. My name is Kristina Dvochko.
I'm Michael Levan.
And today it's just us. We're gonna talk a little bit about the Kubernetes in context of sustainability and how to run Kubernetes and workloads on it in a more greener manner. What are the current trends and tools that are available for us in the cloud native landscape for us to get to that and achieve that? So you have been to the KubeCon and Cloud Native Con NA, Michael, and I don't know if you have noticed that there have been a bit more talks on the topic. What do you feel? Do you feel about that? Did you feel like it's been more talked about in the cloud native space?
Yeah, Tesla has these power bricks, right? And these power bricks, like for example, what'll happen is, let's say you have solar panels like on the top of your house. You can feed the energy into these power bricks, and then you can like plug your car in or plug in whatever your house, whatever, right? So it kind of made me wonder, like, if there's anybody running that in like the Kubernetes landscape right now, or like a data center. I wasn't able to find anything when I was Googling it, but I'm curious, like, if a data center would ever do something like that. Like for example, like an Azure data center, right? Like have a bunch of solar panels, have a bunch of those power energy blocks in the data centers, and then like energize and feed everything that way.
I know about one data center that is doing some really cool stuff in that area, kind of what you're talking about, but not quite. There is a data center in Sweden. I found actually about it pretty accidentally when I was preparing my talk for KubeCon EU last year on the same topic. So this data center, it uses all the excessive heat that comes from kind of the servers to send it further to power the city that the data center belongs to. So kind of all that extra heat that is generated, it is kind of sent further to be used to power the regular homes. And this is like, I think there is like a small city there. I don't remember exactly about how many citizens there are. I think there are like 400-500 citizens, if I'm not mistaken. And they have been like able to power the size of a whole city with that excessive heat. And we know that in general, like when it comes to the data centers, that this is one of the issues that you would need also to use like water or some other cooling technologies in order to be able to handle all the excessive heat coming from that. So that is cool to see that there are ways to like not try to battle it, but to use it kind of further, like in a reuse format, you could say, or use it to bring value as well. So maybe we'll see more of that going forward.
Yeah, I think that's the goal there. Sustainable energy, reusable energy rather, because for example, right, let's say you have an electric car and you go and you charge it, right? That energy, that electric, is coming from somewhere, right? It's coming from various grids, and then you're paying for that energy. So there's kind of like two problems there. Number one, if you look at, like, for example, there was this one article, I believe in Florida, this one guy had like an F-150 Lightning, which is Ford's electric car. And he had to like drive, like, I forget, like 16 hours or something like that. The amount of times that he had to stop to charge, the amount of money that he had to pay was far more expensive than oil, added like 8 or 10 hours to his trip, and he ended up having to get towed because he couldn't find a charging station. So that is not a reusable, sustainable method, right? Like, and not to mention the infrastructure that would have to go up for these grids for it to even be sustainable isn't I don't believe I don't believe that it's a good use of infrastructure for that. But to your point, if a data center can do something like reusable energy with the heat to power X amount of cities or whatever the case may be, that makes sense. Or even, like the whole solar panel thing to have the ability to power the data centers, that makes sense. And you could even have that, like, for example, with like Microsoft's underwater data center stuff, like there's nothing stopping you from like having solar panels still bringing in that energy and connecting it all. So yeah, it's interesting. And I know we're here talking about Kubernetes and I'm talking about electric cars, but it's kind of all one and the same, right? Like the whole sustainable energy thing, the whole not using oil, like it impacts not just one area of the world, right? Like it impacts everything. It impacts what we do for a living. It impacts what a lot of people are doing for a living. So I think the ironic thing is like, if we solve this sustainable energy issue, we could solve it not only for Kubernetes, but for everything.
Yeah, I agree. And I know I'm like pretty aware that the word sustainability is kind of maybe triggering for many because we're talking a lot about it, but it's not just talking about it. Many companies and many people are using this as it's a trendy hot topic. Let me pitch in something and put the word sustainability into it. Or let's talk about greenwashing or like the credits, the offset of your carbon emissions to someone else who's going to plant the trees. And let's talk about how cool that is. And at the same time, produce more. And then it's not surprising that often this topic for many can be triggering in a bit of a negative way and people can be like a little skeptical. So like I am passionate about it in my private life, but in this case as well, I want to like look onto the scientific, onto the factual part of this. Like what can we do? How can we think about it? Because like if you look at the core of the topic itself, there are scientific facts that this is a challenge that we are facing right now, the whole planet. I don't need to use it as a hype. There are many official research data and research papers on that topic that have been measuring this stuff since 1800s, and that is facts that can be checked, that this is a challenge. And I do believe that we should all contribute to it. And now with the AI, with the large language models, with the power it requires, and with all the demand that we have to use these services, the data centers do not have like an eternal capacity to offer. So many, for example, public cloud providers need to extend. They need to build more data centers. And what this has resulted into is that there have been countries that have even put like temporary moratoriums on building data centers, because what the issue happened there is that with the growing demand, the demand for using the resources, for using the power to power those servers also has grown. And it was taken from the citizens and the infrastructure of the cities and the country. And then that's how are you going to balance that? You would still need to be able to have enough resources to keep the infrastructure going, to keep the prices, which is a challenge in Norway, for instance, these days, or in Europe in general, are the prices for the electricity. How do you manage that together with that growing demand, right? And that's when it boils down to what we are talking about, to running Kubernetes, running our applications in clouds. How can we do this efficiently? How can we run and use our resources efficiently? Because with efficiency, we can contribute to making it also more sustainable. And that's, I believe, where we can bring value.
And the weird thing is, like, if you look up in the sky and you look at the sun, don't look at it directly for everybody that's listening. You'll go blind.
Good point.
Disclaimer, don't look at it directly. I can't pay for everybody's eye care. But you're looking at the world's largest battery. The energy that's emitted from the sun could power the entire world. There's nothing, it doesn't run out. Well, I guess it depends on what physicist you ask, but the goal is that it does not run out. And that's kind of the thing. Like, we have the ability to power, a lot. It's really just a matter of you know what it is? I think the ability is there, but The ability from a physics perspective is there, but from an infrastructure perspective, now I'm saying infrastructure in terms of like the infrastructure that needs to be built to sustain things like electric cars and stuff like that. It's not there. Like it's way easier to plug in a server in a wall than it is to build solar panels and put all that up and build power bricks and all that stuff. It's far easier to go stop and get gas than it is to find a charging station for your car. The problem is that the ability to do it is there. It's just more difficult. And I believe that's the problem that we're facing right now is it's just easier to plug in a wall versus getting the approval for however much it's going to be to put solar panels on your data center. And not only that, right? Like we're talking permits, we're talking approvals from property management companies. We're talking people coming in and installing them. We're talking maintenance, all of it. I mean, there's just so much that would have to go into it from an infrastructure perspective. And ironically enough, like I have family members that are electricians in the union. And like we were having these discussions like over the holidays and stuff last month where it was like, yeah, like the infrastructure that's needed to sustain this is just not there, and it's not going to be there for a while. So we need better and easier ways to sustain that infrastructure. So instead of saying, hey, I'm going to put a charger at every gas station, it's like, no, think about solar panels. Think about giving more ease of use for charging. Same thing in a data center. You know, instead of saying, hey, we're going to have whatever it is, like they should be thinking about more like solar panels. They should be thinking about, you know, charging bricks like from Tesla to store the charge. That way you can use it later and you don't have to use it right then and there. Yeah, a lot of different capabilities. And if I'm not mistaken, maybe you might know, Christina, but even when it's dark out, and this might be such a stupid question, but even when it's dark out, your solar panels still work. No, like obviously, like if you have solar panels on your house and it's dark outside, like you can still turn on your lights now.
Yeah, like it may be a bit beyond my area of expertise, but I think like there is still energy from the sun even when it's dark. That's the fact. So I would guess that it still generates some. It's just can't it's much weaker than it would be through the day. That's why like when for example, we have neighbors that have done this renovation where they put solar panels on the whole roof. And that's why it is specific homes that have this sun side. It would give them more benefits to fully get power from those solar panels if they have like the sun side more or less the whole day, whereas the house that does not and has a lot of shadow would not benefit as much and would still need to be able to default or use the regular power as an additional source. And it's also quite an expensive investment. So, for example, something we are considering in our house to do now that we need to renovate the roof, and it still is costly. And I think like this domain in general is very new. A lot is happening. Also, like from the technical perspective, right? For us as engineers that are building platforms, that are developing applications that run on those platforms, that are using cloud services, like there is still not much standardization in place that can make it easier to grasp. How do I measure it? How is the state of what I have built? How is the state of it under load when it's being used? How sustainable is it? How much resources it's using, and how can I improve it? And that's because so much is changing every single day. And like there are a lot of bits and pieces that need to hang together, which also makes it difficult to like measure it in the same manner for every single environment. So what you're measuring like in public cloud can be different from if you're running it on bare metal or if you're running on mobile devices versus say regular desktop application. You may need to use different types of parameters in order to measure it in a meaningful way. That's why what we see is that it can be like difficult to grasp, and many of it is so new and therefore expensive. Like any technology we've seen through the year, once something cool comes out and is limited, even like the first computer, right? It can be super expensive and challenging to acquire and start using. But I believe that with time, it will be more accessible for us. And we see like in Norway, for example, like regarding your point about having this electric car charger fear syndrome. Like there are applications, for example, we have a startup company here in Norway that is building an application that kind of will map out all the chargers that are available for you in the different countries neighboring to Norway and Norway as well, that will help you kind of map your routes and will help you make this trip easier and being able to plan it without fearing that you will run out of electricity, and kind of will also help optimizing based on the prices and all. So we see this innovation happening.
Yeah.
But it takes time.
You know what I'm thinking about? I'm thinking about, so number one, I was Googling while you were talking, and if anybody's interested, there are portable solar panels. So you can actually go on Amazon and you can buy these portable solar panels, which look rather interesting. So you don't have to get like a huge company to kind of come in and do it for you. And the other thing that I was thinking about was, remember in grade school, there were like the solar powered calculators?
Yeah.
I can remember from, I don't even know, I don't even know how old I was, but I can remember like turning them, and it would work when you pointed it in one direction, and it wouldn't work when you pointed in another direction. I guess if you were pointing closer to the sun. But the reason that I'm thinking this is because like, even, you know, when it's dark, right? Like I could be wrong here. I'm not a physicist, obviously, but I think it also has to do with the sun's radiation, right? In terms of the power that's coming in. So that might be like why it works, like even in your home, right? Because in your home, like your roof isn't open, so the sun isn't beating directly. So if things like that solar powered calculator could work, maybe it has something to do with the radiation. So it's like we have all these different capabilities that are at our disposal. It's really just a matter of, I guess, like I said, like building the infrastructure and making it more mainstream, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that takes time, right? And even like figuring out how to do that and how to do that at scale. But if we think like, for example, public cloud providers, if we were to compare, if you were to build a private cloud yourself, build your own data center versus public cloud, we would expect, just like with security, for example, like we've been talking earlier about that public cloud providers have the means to invest a lot also into this aspect, because they have this huge scale. And they need to also set an example, and they will be asked to set that example also by the government, what is happening now, at least in Europe, around the regulations for kind of being able to report on your emissions.
Wow.
So, for example, they would, I would guess, have like an opportunity also to show and to set that example by building their infrastructure in a efficient, reduce, reuse, recycle type of manner.
Right. Yeah. And I think the reuse piece there is the most important, especially for, I mean, I don't think I would really want to necessarily look at a data center's electric bill, but I'm assuming there's a lot of power that's needed, right? Especially for a very large data center, like an Azure data center or something like that. So, the infrastructure needed alone for that is probably like, you definitely can't go on Amazon and buy a couple portable solar panels. And probably won't work. Random question out of curiosity. Do you drive an electric car?
Yeah, I do.
You do? Yeah.
A small one, actually, not a Tesla.
Nice. Yeah, I figured you did because I know that you're really interested in this stuff like outside of Kubernetes as well.
Yeah,
That's
but
awesome.
like to mention on that, it's not always um, it's not always the most optimal solution to buy something new instead
Mm,
of using what you already have. I think it's
mm,
important to mention so that like, oh, electrical cars are now the go-to. So if you have recently bought a regular car, now you need to throw that away and buy a new electric car. And the same like with the servers, right? If the new
mm,
type of hardware came out, you need to like wipe out your data center and buy all new servers. Then you come to that physical waste type of thing
mm,
that may not always be the best solution
mm,
that you need to kind of evaluate. So the same here. I bought an electric car a year or so ago because the one that I had was also a small one, and we inherited it from the grandparents of my husband, and it kind of have been there since 2006,
oh, wow.
and it was very well used. So it was time for it to go and retire. And it is still there, so we still use it, sometimes on the longer routes, but for most of it, we are using the electric car. So this
Interesting.
balance is important.
Very, very cool. Do you think that at some point, you know, Microsoft and AWS and these companies will, because of this need, get into like the sustainable energy game? Because I wonder if like every company will end up, because you know how they say like every company's a tech company now?
Mm.
At what point will it be like every company is a sustainable energy company? Because like even like thinking about like Tesla, for example, like everybody looks at Tesla and thinks like, oh, it's a electric car company. It's not. It's a sustainable energy company. They do a lot of stuff with solar panels. They do a lot of stuff with the power bricks. They do a lot of stuff outside of electric cars. So it's like they are like a sustainable energy company. They're just known for their cars. Do you think that like Azure and AWS and stuff, like they'll do similar things? Like they'll be like a sustainable energy company? Because I guess they would kind of have to be, right? Like in some way, shape, or form.
They are in a
Mm,
way, or they're moving there. Some of the public cloud providers more than others.
mm,
I think they have done, at least like Microsoft and Google have done great advancements and investments in that area. So I think with the way the world is changing and the challenges we're facing, they have no other choice than doing that. But I think it's about spreading that knowledge and putting your position and making it transparent and making it truly sustainable, and not like talking about sustainability and then all you do is greenwashing or
mm,
offsetting, like buying credits externally and not actually putting effort into doing it yourself. So
right.
I think that will matter a lot, because now, especially for those who are working with this domain of sustainability, it's pretty visible when a company says that they are sustainable, but then when you look into the details, you can see that a lot of data is hidden. They
Mm,
just say that they do, but what you only know of is that they are using it as a type of marketing.
mm-hmm,
And I feel that like public cloud providers are on the right path, but the challenge of having that data transparent and available for the community to check. How are you sustainable? What are the different emissions you're producing, and how has it changed over time? How is my usage of the cloud services contributing to the overall emissions? And can
mm,
I measure it for my tenant versus the others? And for example, comparing the three public cloud providers, I believe Google Cloud has a tool that is trying to achieve something like that, that
mm,
is kind of helping you to see how sustainable your resource usage in cloud is.
mm,
But there are tools that are coming out in the open source space and cloud native space that I see the potential to be integrated by these public cloud providers that I hope they could use over time, so that we can see that it can become visible that they are indeed also a sustainable cloud provider. So I don't know if I should go into the details for the Kubernetes specific one, where I do see a potential of being integrated, which I would like to see being integrated into the public cloud providers, is Kepler. And that is a sandbox project in CNCF that it is the tool that basically gathers the power energy metrics as from our Kubernetes clusters and from the applications that are running on those nodes, and then it exports them as to Prometheus. And then you could use machine learning models to kind of visualize how much power is being consumed by your workloads and by your nodes in the clusters. And this is something that the cloud providers can integrate and make available as part of their managed Kubernetes service, for example. And I hope to see this happening with time.
It's interesting.
But we will only know over time, I think. Maybe we can do a revamp of this episode in 5 years and see if anything has changed.
Yeah, we should. I was thinking it would be interesting if we should talk to the CNCF or KubeCon EU and figure out if there's a way to like get like a little we should bring like an Intel NUC or something, deploy a bootstrap Kubernetes cluster with like kubeadm, and then look to power it with some portable solar panels. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, that could be interesting.
Yeah, that's really interesting that there are even like these open source projects and tools coming out now all around this space. Yeah, it's interesting because I think I look more into the the reusable energy just outside of tech and stuff in general. But based on this conversation, like whether you're looking at it for cars, whether you're looking at it for homes, it's the same thing. It all translates to the same thing. Like Kubernetes energy sustainability is no different than home energy sustainability. Well, I mean, obviously, depending on data center versus size of a home, like that's different. But the core of what the goal is at the end it's all the same stuff, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's about reducing waste, about maximizing the utilization of your existing resources, about finding ways to optimize what you use as little as possible, and to have ways to monitor, measure, and improve over time. And that's like, I think there was a saying, now I'm not sure I can say it exactly, but the most sustainable server is the one that's off. Or like the most sustainable system is the one that is offline, that is non-existent, because then it does not produce anything. But with regards to the current situation, the goal is basically to make it as efficient as possible and reduce as much waste as possible. And like the part with waste is actually the easiest step, but the one that is the largest problem currently, about so many resources just being there, idle or forgotten, orphaned, not cleaned up, and just being there, using that energy, using those resources. So, I mean, this is like the easiest step each and every one of us engineers can take. Just, get back home, get back to work and check, okay, have I forgotten anything that I don't need anymore? Can I turn it off?
And it's funny because that's where cost and resource optimization come into play. So, and what's ironic is, and it kind of just hit me as well. I never heard about like any of the cost and resource optimization tools talking about sustainability. Like it's not really part of their pitch.
Yeah, that is actually true. I would need to check regarding the open Cost, for example, is the open source cost management tool. But I think you're right. At this point, I don't think any of them are like, even though they can be used to get some of that information, like, for example, cluster efficiency or node efficiency, that could help you improve it. I don't think they actually state much in that context that it contributes to making your systems more sustainable, which is a shame. I think we should, there is a way to improve there as well.
Yeah, no, totally, 100%.
I might need to recheck that. Now it's been a while. I've been reading like the marketing docs, for example, for the cost and optimization tools. Might need to recheck that. At least, like, if you have worked with them, I guess many of us are probably aware that especially the efficiency metrics that these tools help you, can help you make your systems more efficient. And often a consequence of that may be that you are utilizing your existing resources to their max potential. You're using those nodes in the cluster to their max potential, which contributes to that you need less nodes, to that you have a kind of more sustainable clusters running. So this can often come as a positive improvement, not only from the cost perspective, but also from the resource efficiency and sustainability perspective.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of plays there. And more importantly, there's just a lot of ways to help the universe, right? Because it's funny, like, this is very much becoming a big topic around like reusable energy and stuff like that in the recent years. I mean, and why do you think it's becoming such a big topic in the recent years? Is it because the world is changing? Is it because we have more people, and more people equals more energy use and more devices, or it's just a combination of it all?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of it all. And I think that the Industrial Revolution has been, with the advancement of like digitalizing our world, the results of the Industrial Revolution and all the manufacturing, all the resources being used and all the new resources being produced. I think it just became very visible at some point, just during this, because the technology itself, the IT sector itself, has changed rapidly during the last 20 years. And then at some point, we have seen these challenges with sustainability skyrocketing. And then all this new research where the new technologies maybe made easier this research to happen, also made it super visible at, we actually have a problem. Houston, we have a problem. We actually see the temperatures rising, and we can model and see the actual consequences if we do nothing with it and continue producing and consuming more. This is what's going to happen. This is the fact that will happen with the wildlife. And it's all this chain in the ecosystem of us living creatures being part of that ecosystem. It will all be, how do we call it? One after another. It will be about like a butterfly effect. If we do nothing, this will cause, for example, some important animals disappear. It will have a tremendous negative impact on the wildlife, on the sea life. And then due to that, more of destructions or more of natural disasters will happen, right? This is not something that is popping out of the fantasy. This is actual scientific research that also has been modeled, that you can go and check.
Right.
And now it's visible digitally to everyone. And that's why we are paying more attention to it, because many of us actually do care and want to do something about it. And that's one of the ways to do something about it, is to spread the actual knowledge and not just, marketing stuff. Or using it as a marketing tool. And I guess that's what I try to do. That's what the CNCF Technical Advisory Group for Environmental Sustainability is trying to do in the cloud native space. Because we try to do something where we can. And as engineers, we can do it in the IT sector, whatever role we have in that sector.
Yeah, it's It's very sad and it's quite icky that a lot of organizations are using it to sell their products.
But we try to do the other thing, right? We try to talk about it as it is.
Yep, exactly.
Hype.
Yeah. So wrapping up here, where can everybody listening to this episode kind of go to gain a little bit more knowledge around this and kind of follow along with what's happening, or hopefully contribute, or just follow along, whatever they're comfortable with?
Yeah, I would like to mention 3 organizations where you could follow and on a little bit different aspects that may be relevant to different parts of IT that focus on sustainability. The Green Web Foundation focuses more on kind of keeping the internet green as in general. So it has a database of the hosting providers that are making an impact and trying to be sustainable and have actual formal proof of that you could, for example, check. And they publish a lot of content on that topic. Green Software Foundation focuses more on the application on the software side of things, on how you could build applications, build your software in a more efficient and sustainable manner. And they're working on standardizing that. And also publish a lot of content, both podcasts and live streams and blogs. And finally, the one that I'm a part of that is more relevant to, like most relevant to cloud native and also Kubernetes as well to a big extent, is the Technical Advisory Group for Environmental Sustainability. So we work a lot with also publishing information about how you could make your Kubernetes clusters more efficient, more sustainable, and how you could, in general, utilize cloud and the tools available there in a more sustainable manner. And we have a separate working group called Green Reviews, where we are currently building a workflow that will measure every CNCF project. That is our long-term goal. It will measure the resource consumption of every CNCF project and calculates its current sustainability and resource efficiency posture and provide recommendations on how you could improve that. So you could basically just connect that project, that workflow to any of the CNCF projects in the landscape and get that information. And then we would like to make that statistics publicly available as well. So if you're interested in technical contributions, and as engineers we do, this is a great way to contribute, because we're using a lot of open source technologies like OpenTofu and K3S and K6 and a bunch of other tools. And we are currently at the starting point. So we are learning as we build, basically. So that's a great opportunity to collaborate with other technologies on something that makes an impact.
Awesome. Well, I definitely learned a lot, because I don't think I really knew much about the sustainability space from a Kubernetes perspective before this podcast. So I appreciate it.
Very cool. Then if I manage to tell something to make someone feel like they learned something, I feel like my day was successful, that I managed to teach something about this topic in a way.
There you go. Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing, Christine. I appreciate it.
Thank you, as always, for a great conversation, Michael. And thanks to all our listeners.